What's me? How's it hanging? How's it happen? You guys know this is Kevin from the Chord Progression Podcast. The podcast, Rolling Stone magazine says, initiates profound discussions with rock and metal artists, allowing fans to discover the creative workflow of their favorite musicians and understand the factors that make the band succeed or fall from fame. We are all sponsored by Dark Fusion Systems, the best for your custom competing needs. Get $100 off your entire build code CPPod at darkfusionsystem.com. Look to the podcast below. Let's go to our feature presentation. We have Jaali from the band Until I Wake on the podcast today. Their brand new album, Renovate, comes out on December 6th, which is 3 days from the airing of this episode. And we not only go into Jaali joining the band during the band or Until I Wake's 2023 run with Imminence at the end of the year, how that all played out, but we dive deep into Renovate as well, how it was made, what they did to create this, and why this is an album of the year contender. Plus, there's a little bit of an Easter egg there at the end of something I'm going to try and pull off on release day. So it's going to be fun. All because this album's worth it. You guys ready? Let's go! Yeah. Well, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, listeners of the Chord Progression Podcast. We had this band back on the podcast in 2022 when they released the album Inside My Head. And since then, the band has gone on to do great things through 1,000 Below, Imminence, Veilmeyer, Rain City Drive, to going and playing Download Fest in 2024. They're going to be going over to Europe in 2025, and they're set for Rockville in 2025 as well. It is absolutely nuts what this band has been on, and they're going to have a brand new album called Renovate come out on December 6th. Now, before we even talk to this man about this album, I got to preface this one thing. I've gone through the whole entire album up to this point, and picking a favorite song is damn hard. There has not been an album this year that I've gone through the whole entire album and I'm like, I cannot pick a favorite song because they all could stand out like that. But this is that album for 2025. So please welcome Jaali from Until I Wake to the podcast. So Jaali, welcome to Chord Progression Podcast.
Thanks for having me.
Dude, how is life going for you today? I mean, we got a brand new album coming out literally at the beginning of December. You're right there. So how's life going for you?
Everything's been blessed. I feel very grateful to be in this position, and I'm just really excited for the album to drop. It'll be my first LP with, a major record label, and this genre of music is one of my favorites to experiment with. Like, I've been screaming, I've been rapping, I've been playing acoustic guitar. I've done a little bit of everything, and metal and this genre that I'm in right now is not this one specifically, but just this one that's kind of taken the forefront of all the other stuff that I work on. This is my favorite thing to work on. This is my favorite genre of music to make. So I'm just really excited to be able to see how this album does, and what it can do for people is my biggest my biggest excitement, to see kind of what this album has as far as an effect on all the listeners.
Well, I'm hoping that the early returns from this album are going to be nothing but positive because, I mean, like I said, I listened to the whole entire thing and it was super hard to pick a favorite song out there. I'm still bouncing my head between like three of them because every single song had a different feel to it, a different piece in there, had a different idea behind it. Hearing you rap on here too, especially right from the jump, I thought, what's going on here? Why is this happening? And then all of a sudden it hits, and it flows perfectly through and through. And it's just every step of the way. This album expanded the sound that Until I Wake has into so many more avenues. But when bands do that, a lot of the times, there's always some bumps in the road that happen. There's always a couple of difficulties that you got to iron out. It seemed like everything was ironed out on every single one of these songs because it was so hard to pinpoint one where I was in like, I'm more impressed by this one than the last one. Okay, now I'm even more impressed. It just keeps going and going. And by the time I got to the end, I'm like, this was a full experience of an album. It really was.
I love that. I didn't even know you got the whole album. Did the label send it to you?
Oh, they sent it to me, and I spent all of, I think it was a couple days before it came out. I was probably supposed to go to bed or something and go to work the next day. But I started listening to it, working on it, and putting on all my thoughts. And I'm like, I just don't want to stop because I'm enjoying this so much. So it was probably like 11 o'clock at night. I got to be up at 5:30 in the morning. I'm like 9 songs, and I'm like, I got to finish the last 3. I cannot put this on hold.
I love that.
So if everyone, well, we'll get into the album soon enough, but there's one thing that I really remember specifically, and that's because I had the band on in 2022. At the time, I had all 4 members on, and I remember seeing you guys play with Imminence in 2023 on Imminence's first run in the United States, and all of a sudden, up on stage, you're there, and I'm like, okay, what's going on here? The show was an absolute blast, but I just had no idea that all of a sudden you took over lead vocals, so I want to hear your story about when it came to you taking over lead vocals for Until I Wake and then having to learn the entire set so quickly to be able to do that Imminence run.
What show were you at on the Imminence run?
Chicago.
At the Metro?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, that was a good show. That was a great show. So, my experience with the band, how it all came to be was I used to make music under a band called Breath Alive, which was back in 2013. I was in high school. I was like a sophomore in high school. Ryan, the bassist of Until I Wake Now, he had picked up one of my buddies to play guitar. And me and that buddy, he kind of stole from me. We were making music together. So when he went off to play shows and stuff, I was like, hey, man, like, I wish you nothing but the best. Happy for you. You get to play gigs now. Like, that's so cool. And then out of nowhere, they called me and asked me to join A Breath Alive. So that was way back in 2013. That's how I met Ryan. The band didn't end up working out for more than like a year or so. And then fast forward 10 years later, November of last year, Ryan called me almost right around the same time. Like it was probably like the 15th or 16th. Let me think. We had the first day was the 26th, and it was 9 days before. So it was like the 17th.
Yeah, we're literally shooting this one day after that. So it's like one day after the full anniversary of this happening.
Yeah. So he gives me a call and he's like, hey, man, like, I just have a quick question. And I already have this feeling in my gut. Like my intuition is telling me he's going to ask me to join the band. And he's like, can you do music full time? So instantly I was just like, I already knew this was coming. Like I as soon as you asked me like if I could take a call, I had a feeling. I was like, yeah, like what's the move? Like I don't know, like what are you guys up to right now? They're like, well, we have this tour in 9 days and it's for 8 days straight, and it's with this band called Imminence. And I was like, yo, Imminence, like no way. Like I literally was telling my mom about Imminence. I'm like, yo, this guy plays violin, he sings, he screams, he's handsome. I'm like, this is crazy. I'm like, this the band that we're going on tour with. He's like, yes, it's just us and Imminence. That's it. He goes, we got a 45-minute set. Mind you, when I'm doing my own music back home, like I've been making music for the last 10 years as Jaali Cypher, like hip hop music and stuff. I'm doing like 30-minute sets, 35-minute sets. And now I'm about to do a 45-minute set, not rapping, but yelling, screaming, running around, and for 8 days straight. So I was very excited, but also very like nervous about, what if I screw it up? What if I'm not the guy they think I am? Because they kept telling me, you're a good singer, you can sing well. And I'm like, dude, I don't know if I'm your guy. Like, I don't know if you really like know how well I can sing, stuff like that. And they were kind of like, yo, listen, if you can't sing the greatest right now, we know you can scream like crazy. We know you're a great performer. You're a great person. Like you're a good front man. So you'll just have to get better at it. But we're totally willing to work with you and take you on the road and see what you can do. And we did that first Imminence run. And I know there was definitely a couple hiccups as far as like, me hitting the right notes, stuff like that. But every single night, the reaction of people was just unbelievable. People were like, yo, we didn't know who the hell you were when you jumped on that stage, but you blew us out of the water. Like we didn't know what to expect. So that first tour went really well. And ever since then, I've been just very like laser toned in on my my vocals. So I've been practicing a lot every day. I've been watching a lot of YouTube videos. I do warm-ups before we go on stage. I've been at home. I'm doing stuff to get better. So when we hit the road, like I'm more like fine-tuned. So it's only been getting better every tour. Like even the YouTube comments, I see them every once in a while, and people will say, hey man, this dude was a little rough at first, but he's gotten really good. And just the whole experience with the band the last year, I gotta say there's not too many things in my life other than like my son that can trump what we've done in this last year. Like the things that I have done in this last year with the band have just made this year one of the best years of my entire life. It's just been an absolute blast, and I just feel incredibly grateful to be here.
I absolutely have to commend the rest of the guys too for knowing that, coming from your background, especially from more of a hip hop background at the moment, and knowing you can scream like crazy. And when it comes to the cleaner vocals and trying to hit some of those high pitch notes, at times it's not going to be the easiest thing, especially having to learn a set 9 days in and having to be in a different style than what you were working in beforehand.
Exactly.
So during some of those Imminence shows, I mean, I still remember the Metro one as well. You could tell during the cleans there were a couple of hiccups there, but again, that was like the third show of the tour.
Literally,
So,
I've never sung these songs before other than
yeah.
like maybe in my car or like when they come on. Like my boys will just come on the radio or they'll come on my playlist. But as far as like how much time I had to really like
Mhm.
muscle memory, like learn these songs and stuff, it was like 4 or 5 days of like actually with the band. So by the end of the tour was when I was finally starting to be able to like
Mhm.
reach the notes. But then by then, it's like the middle of winter. We're sleeping in a school bus. I'm like, my voice is gone. It's like 3 degrees outside. I remember the New York City show, like literally it was like a snowstorm. And I'm like, I woke up to snow coming in the bus. And I'm
Oh
like,
God.
yeah, like I'm sleeping right next to the bus doors because they don't have any more bunks. I was a new guy, so I took the futon. And it's just like people don't understand. Like I know I got a lot of hate online in the beginning, and it's like if only people understood, like
Mm-hmm.
what I had to kind of go through coming into this, as opposed to most vocalists. They get ready and they have years to prepare and
Mm-hmm.
they got months to practice the songs. And it's like no, I had like maybe 9 days. I was juggling a 40-hour-a-week job. I have my kids. So it's like I have all these other things I'm juggling and I'm about to leave for this tour. So I got to practice this new music. So yeah, it was definitely pretty interesting.
It was definitely interesting because I still remember too when you did the unclean screams at that Chicago show. It still really stood out for for the positive of okay, when it comes to the unclean style, already Jaali's got it down in terms of being able to hit those powerful notes, being able to hit those screams in a certain way, and especially on a song like For the Record where I love the breakdown for that whole entire song. The scream on that one you put on there was absolutely perfect if I remember correctly. So I get where people are coming from because, especially in those comments initially, yeah, you want to be able to tell that story at that point in time, and you want to make sure that it's like, hey, well, this is what I had to go through in order just to get to this point for this tour. That it was like a 2.5, 3 week like turnaround between when you got the call to the end of the run. So that's not a lot of time practice, and then doing it in November and December and working out of a bus, it's not going to be the easiest thing to keep your vocals in top tier, top notch mode because the voice is your instrument. You got to make sure it's tuned properly. But now that, the guys in the band were able to give you that time, give you that space, and then going into the rest of 2024, being able to allow you to have that time to practice to continue to see how you were going to be able to get better vocally. And by taking so much laser focus and so much stock into making sure you were going to do this, made not only 2024 great, but you can easily tell that your vocal style, whether it's the rapping style, the unclean screams, or the clean vocals, all over Renovate stand out to say, hey, this is definitely something, this was the right guy to go with. May have been rough in those first couple of shows, but now that you all know the story and understand why, okay, see where they're at now. And trust me, where they're at now, ooh, it's so good. It's like chef's kiss. Even Gordon Ramsay would put this shit out to his restaurant patrons and be like, service, please. He wouldn't ask for any lamb sauce or anything.
I love that, man. That's a good analogy.
I've been watching too much Hell's Kitchen lately just for the hell of it, so kind of sitting in there pretty heavily. But I mean, it's still, even what you're bringing up too with the Imminence show, when you told, you're telling your mom, like, I was telling you about this band, now I get to go like open for them. Just a wild ride, and then another wild ride all throughout 2024, playing alongside some great bands, some great artists as well. Even during that time with the runs with so many of these other artists, you had to pick up a couple of tips and tricks from some of these other vocalists to see how you could better amplify and better practice and make your clean vocals a hell of a lot better too.
Yes, sir. That's definitely every chance I could to sit down with any of these touring bands. I would always ask them and kind of pick their brain and see what kind of tips and tricks they had for me.
Was there any that like really stood out to you as like the tip or trick that just was the coolest one of all time?
The ones that stood out the most are the people who told me they don't practice. There's so many vocal, and it's crazy because like I do both. I practice sometimes and then sometimes I don't. Their reason for not practicing is because they said that, oh, whenever we do warm-ups, like we start warming up and like one little hiccup in the warm-up can start to make your brain like psyched out where you're like, oh, like today's not going to be a good show, and you start overthinking it, and then you hit the stage and you have a weird show. And then sometimes you don't really have to think about it. Like you're just doing your thing. And then it's like, oh, we're on in 5 minutes. Like get to the stage, get your earphones in and get on the stage. And it turns out to be like an amazing show. So there's been like days where I do both. I tend to warm up and practice and do that kind of stuff more often than not because I am very novice at this. This is only my first year doing it, but it was very shocking to like hear from like not to name drop, but Eddie on Imminence. I'm like, hey
Mhm.
man, what are you doing when you like, before you hit the stage? He goes, oh, I don't really do anything. I just get up there and I do it. And I'm like, okay, next. Like, all right, well, I guess fuck me then, right? Like, I'll just have to get as good as you before I can do that. But I would say the biggest tip someone gave me was this warm up I still do to this day. It's called like a siren, where you just kind of and you go up and down, and you kind of it really just kind of warms up all those ranges from your chest to your head voice, and you just kind of do that a few times over. And this YouTube video I've watched a bunch of times. It's like just this purple warm up video on
Mhm.
YouTube. Those always come in clutch too.
Well, that's the beauty of being able to talk to so many other artists and be able to have the resources that we have, like YouTube, to see all these different exercises and to see how other people do it. Because, yeah, there might be some vocalists where they're just naturally talented, where that just warming up just isn't going to help them out or might psych them out even more. If that's what works for them, that's the beauty of it. But if it's not going to work for you, okay, you can look on YouTube to find some other ideas, or you can talk to other artists as well and see what they do and find those tips and tricks. Because you're eventually what's going to happen is, as time goes on, as you continue to tour, there's going to be younger bands that have come up and are touring with you that are opening for you guys, and you're going to have those vocalists ask you the same questions, and you're going to be able to respond in very much the same way. It's like, this is what I do. However, I also know artists that they just don't really do it that much, but that's just who they are. So you always have to figure it out for yourself, but I'll give you the tips and tricks that I know so you can try them
Yeah.
out for yourself and see if it's going to work out to make your voice even better.
Yeah, for sure. Just on this last tour, there was a couple guys on the run that were it's so cool because in the beginning, like I said, like I was kind of rough, and to hear not only the fans, but some of these other bands that we tour with, like even some of the bigger bands, the bands that are bigger than us, and they're
Mhm.
saying like after I get off the stage, they're like in the green room, like, dude, like your vocals are crazy. Like, what do you do and how do you do it? And to be able to like share that with anyone is always like, I just feel so happy about it. Cause I'm like, yo, let me give you the sauce. Like, let me give you the
Mhm.
tricks. Let me give you the secrets. I want to see you use it on stage. I want to see what you can do with it. Cause it just makes me feel like a proud dad to be able to share that information. I'm not in the interest of gatekeeping anything. I always love spreading that information to help other people get better. And there was a couple guys on this run that like I just say like, oh, like maybe try doing this a little bit, try to do this, and then you see them get up on stage and they do it, and it just makes me so happy and hyped. I just get off stage, they get off stage, and I'm like so proud. So that's been really cool.
Just we're gonna get you a shirt that says "Proud Dad Moment." Every time you see a band that gives you like you give a tip
That's
to, and they do it on stage, you can just quickly change a shirt and just have a proud
that's
dad moment.
hilarious. That's
Or you can have
hilarious.
you can have your wholehearted sweatshirt on, open it up in a zipper, and then have that proud dad moment
I
and
like that.
full
I
on
like
like
that.
Superman style.
Just right on the back, it just says "Proud Dad," like huge letters. Proud Dad.
Well, before I jump into the album with you, I do want to ask you about the clothing line you're working on, Wholehearted. So, can you give me some like background on that, some detail on that, so we can get more people into what you're doing?
Yeah, for sure. So like ever since I joined the band and stuff, like, my work schedule is really hectic. So you really the only way I've ever been able to make money was just having like a regular job. So coming off of having a regular job and just being on tour, when I come home, I really wanted to have an outlet to be able to still like be creative and like express that myself in that creative way. I've always loved fashion. I love painting.
Mhm.
I love designing stuff. So just this past year, right when we were kind of figuring out our first single, which was called Wholehearted, I really wanted to make my clothing brand something that was like memorable and had like a really good name. And Wholehearted itself, just I really like the name. I gravitated towards that name for the single of the song. It felt really comfortable for the name of the brand. So that was the first thing I stuck with, and I waited like a week before I kind of nailed it down. And after a week, it still felt good. So this is the clothing brand. It's called Wholehearted Streetwear. Everything is done right here in my basement. I'm literally sitting right here with some stencils, my screen printer over there, my heat press. I make like the stencils myself. So when I'm doing ink, I make
Mhm.
the silk screens myself. This hoodie right here is using like vinyl with like the heat press. I got like a new machine for that. So Yeah, everything's done like in-house. These are like some t-shirts back there. The website's live right now. It's hhstreetwear.com. The Instagram is Wholehearted Streetwear. And yeah, I just really wanted to be able to like capitalize on the fact that like I feel like I am a creative person and I have these other talents that I want to be able to utilize while I'm home. So that's where the whole brand came from. Hoodies are coming out soon. T-shirts are on the website right now. So yeah,
Yeah.
Wholehearted.
And seeing your whole entire setup too in the basement as well, seeing that you screen print it yourself, you got the whole setup there. I mean, right now you can tell it's in your basement, so it's not, the craziest, biggest, screen printing operation I've ever seen. Because I actually do have cousins that is like their business is screen printing. So it's like when you start talking about stencils and like having to put these all on and like heat press, I'm like, my God, I'm going back to when I was like 16, working in the back of a warehouse, just cleaning the screens just to make sure that they could get the next run going.
Exactly. It's weird because it's like I've never done any of this stuff before. So again, YouTube videos, like they're insanely helpful. So that's where all of this kind of started from was learning how to screen print, going to my craft store, getting a couple screens. Now I like make my own screens. Like I go to a thrift store, get a frame, get the screens off of Amazon, like the mesh, and I'll like staple them together, coat them, burn the design. And I've found that the ink, like screen printing and stuff, is like I can't tell you how many times I've printed a shirt. It looks perfect. I lift up the screen, everything's good. I come back 2 seconds later, and like there's just a random spot of paint on the shirt.
Yeah.
Somewhere. So I'm like, yo, I'm with the hoodies. Like I wanted to try a new avenue. So it's vinyl and it's like a puff print.
Okay.
And oh my goodness, it's so much easier to work with. Like I'm still gonna be screen printing. I'm still gonna be doing that, but I'm just trying other avenues to kind of learn all the different aspects of like making clothes. So I'm trying to kind of master all of them. And as I'm going, there's just a new drop every couple months. I did a summer drop, 2 shirts, and then now I'm working on this hoodie and possibly some other stuff too for the winter.
Yeah, well, hopefully that hoodie drops sometime soon because, I mean, we're shooting this in November. The album comes out in December. It'll be the perfect time to get people into that hoodie. And you did drop the website name there as well. So if everyone goes to description of the podcast, the website will be down there for you as well to easily go there. And when I saw the brand name Wholehearted, my first thought was, if you're going to do a collaboration with someone on this, you got to do a collaboration with Echo. Wholehearted Heart Hop, somehow combining the two things, it would absolutely work.
So let me grab this jacket. So
God, it already happened?
So not Echo, but so with Until I Wake. So Until I Wake song Wholehearted. So I made this jacket. It's got lyrics from the song Wholehearted on it. So all of this is done. Ooh. And then this is my brand. So it's kind of like a my brand Wholehearted collab with Until I Wake. And then on the back is the Until I Wake logo. And it's like kind of like a splatter paint like jacket.
Yeah.
A bit of the splatter paint. So what I wanted to do was kind of give back to the fans. So any fans of Until I Wake, any fans of me in general, whoever cops any merch off of the website, I'm just going to pick like a generator off Google and enter everyone's email in. And whoever buys any merch off the website after 100 orders are made, someone's getting that jacket for free. So that's where that came from. I wanted to make kind of like a collab with Until I Wake and my brand. So that's where that came from.
Well, shit, everyone better put their order in as soon as possible because, well, I'm going to have to do that too. I want my chance to win that jacket. We'll see what happens. And then all of a sudden, next time I get to see you guys play live, I would say I would wear that jacket, but there is no way in hell I'm going to take that jacket and like completely ruin it in the middle of the pit. That's not my style. Okay. Like I'm going to like, I'll find something, but it'll be like, yeah, he wore a cutoff into the pit because he was going to get too sweaty otherwise. That's usually how it goes.
Yeah, I feel that for sure. Just thanks for shouting out the brand and everything too. I appreciate that.
Oh, you're very welcome. Because you took the time to show up here. Now I talk about Until I Wake, talk about the brand new album. But we talked about the clothing brand before we started recording. I want to give the plug there before we jump in the album. So now's the perfect time to do it. Again, Renovate is coming out on December 6th. And I saw that you guys recorded in Michigan with none other than Landon Tewers of the Plot and You, who I have had on the podcast like 3 years ago. And I always love seeing people work with Landon because he's got this certain eye, this certain ear for ideas. And every time I hear that he touched something, I'm like, okay, it's going to be good at some point in time. So when it came to creating everything that is Renovate, how did that whole entire process work for you guys? Because like we mentioned right at the beginning of the podcast, it was so hard for me to pick almost every single, like a favorite song because so many of them stood out. So how did this whole entire process of writing this album work for the band?
So the whole process was very fun. Thinking back to like when we first started it, I remember the label told us, we're gonna, send you out to Michigan for around like 5 weeks, and you're gonna stay in this Airbnb, and you're gonna go to Landon's house in between staying at the Airbnb. So essentially, we were at this house together. It's just the band at this house, and we would be cooking up at the house, and then we would go to Landon's house and cook up at Landon's house. And it was just like, I mean, thinking back on it, it's like, I've been making music for like 10 years, and like all the studio sessions, and like even like right here in this basement I've been in this basement, back and forth from a kid to being here now. I've been making music in these sessions and stuff. And to be able to go all the way to Michigan and be able to be with someone like Landon working in a session like that, it just felt so unreal to be like, yo, this is my life now. Like I'm here. We're making an album in like this dude's bedroom. So working with Landon was just a blast. And like you said, he's such a creative genius that I feel like working with him made everything so seamless. And I said in the last interview I did when they brought up Landon, he had a really good act of keeping the ball rolling. Sometimes the sessions get stale, or you're working just day after day after day, and you run out of ideas. And I think that Landon had a really good way of not pushing things and not forcing things, but also keeping the ball rolling. So to be able to work with him, shout out Landon. I really, in no way, shape, or form, think we could have made the album that we did without him. Some of the best songs on the album, I feel like, are like directly a part of his influence. So yeah, definitely shout out to Landon. It was a pleasure to be able to work with him.
And it makes sense too, for especially being in an Airbnb, basically locked in together for 5 weeks to work on this, but also working with Landon as well to make sure that you're working with someone that understands the sound, understands the idea, has so much creative knowledge behind him to try and make these things happen. But also, like you said, make sure that these sessions didn't get stale and keep the ball rolling and not force anything on you, but like guiding that path where it's, okay, we're getting stuck on this. Maybe we'll take it in a different direction, but I'm not going to say we have to take in this direction. We'll let you guys drive it. I'm just going to basically nudge you in that direction to see if that's the way you want to go. And it makes a lot of sense too, because when you go through the album, there are so many different spaces and so many different styles that end up getting touched on. Of course, you're going to have that metalcore core that's right at the beginning, at the heart of it, but you see these different like rap pieces come in there. You see these different new metal pieces come in there. There's some songs that have much more of a post-hardcore kind of nature. There's some songs that flow with a lot more of this ballad style too, but it all makes sense when you listen to it, because I don't know how you guys wrote this. I don't know how this whole entire process worked. I don't know how the creative minds that are Until I Wake blended together to make these songs the way they are. But every song, like I said, has a uniqueness to it, to where, yeah, you can listen to it and it's like, okay, I can see where the song is going. At the start, it might feel a little similar to maybe another one, but once you get to that verse and that chorus, it's completely different. There's going to be a different piece that's getting interjected in there to let this thing just fly. So instrumentally, this was easily probably, I think, the most ambitious thing you guys could have done at this point in time, but you hit on every single aspect of it. There was not a miss on this album.
That's awesome that you say that too, because I think one of the biggest things about writing this album that I kept saying, and in the beginning, I feel like they kind of thought I was joking. I was like, yo, guys, no skips. Like, when you listen to a project and you're like, yo, like you skip a song here, you skip a song there, like it happens to everybody. Like, I don't ever expect anybody to just sit there and listen to an entire album of something without skipping like one song. And I told them, I was like, yo, right from the beginning, I'm like, no skips. I'm not going to play around with you guys. If I don't like something, if I think I would skip it, we're skipping it. Like, we're going to leave it and we're going to trash the idea. And we threw out like multiple songs, instrumentals. There were times where they were getting mad at me. They were like, dude, you can't be so picky. And I'm like, dude, like, I'm sorry, but like it didn't make the cut. Like it's not making the cut. Like, because if I have any doubts about it, then that's one of five people that would skip this song. And I'm like, then it's a skipper. I'm like, we're writing a no skip album. Like, this has to be an album that every single song delivers on all of those cylinders. And as far as the ambitious instrumentals, I would say that is heavily influenced by our guitarist Nico. Nico would be locked in the bedroom. Like, we had three different studio setups at the house. We had one in the kitchen. We had a spot for me in the basement to write lyrics, and then we had Nico's bedroom was his own little private studio. And he would grind relentlessly. Like, we would come back from a session at 9 o'clock at night, and we were there from 11 to 9, just straight music all day. Most people would be like, dude, I don't want to hear another fucking chord. He would walk in the door and he would go right up to his room and he would start cooking up another instrumental. And he cooked up probably about 80% of the instrumentals on the album are all just Nico. Like, he just went straight to it every day. And he would show us stuff and we'd be like, yo, where did this come from? Like the one song, Pressure. I'm like, where did this come from? And he goes, oh, I was listening to a lot of like Linkin Park at the time. And I'm like, bro, what? And then all of a sudden we're right at the same time, I think it was Wage War dropped. And we're listening to this new Wage War song. And then later that day, Reverence was written. Like, he wrote the instrumental for that really heavy song, the fifth one on the album. It's called Reverence. And I was like, dude, just the fact that he can hear something and then he can kind of like, I don't know if you watch anime at all, but there's this guy named Kakashi. He's like the copy ninja. Like, if he sees you, he can copy your style. And I'm like, not saying that we're ripping off anybody's style, but like the fact that he could get influenced by a style that quickly and be able to turn it into our own style, it was just like, it was incredible. And then you bring that to Landon and you bring that to me. It's like, it felt unstoppable. It felt like every day we were just making something better than the last. And then by the end of the album, we were like, yo, like, it's over. Like, we're done. Like, oh man, that went faster than we thought it would.
You know, that's wild hearing about. So a couple of things on that. One, I get where you're coming from, and I get where the guys are coming from too, where it's you wanted a no skip album. And if they said you're being too picky, it's just like, you know, I understand where they're coming from, because it's like, if they really like the songs, they kind of want to see them put out there too, but it's going to be something that has to be agreement on all five of you guys. But when you're saying, yeah, if one of us doesn't like it and the other four do, that's 20% of people that are right here with us that would skip that song. Now you put it out into the public, and us in the public, especially, we don't have the same ties to these songs that you do personally. So we're even more or less likely to get behind them than that rest of that 80%. So it might only be 20 at that point. So it might be the flip side. Who really knows? But then it makes sense to really dive deeper in. It's like, okay, can we do this better? Can we get even better with this? And then when you're talking about Nico writing these riffs and just not stopping, and you're bringing up these two songs, bringing up the Reverence as well, I get where you're coming from, where it's like, yeah, we're not trying to copy them, but it's just amazing that he can hear something and just get so inspired by it right then and there to write something about it. And when I was listening to the song, I am looking at what I wrote for it. I'm like, even after listening to the opening riff, I'm like, this is nuts. I'm like, the way the programming was in there too was kind of like the type of gothic metalcore song you would want Motionless and White to try. But Until I Wake,
Catacombs?
No, Reverence.
You said the opening track?
No, the opening riff.
Oh, opening riff of Reverence. Yeah.
If I said opening track, that's my bad.
No, I think you either way, but yeah, we were actually talking about having Chris Motionless on that song, which is wild that you brought up Motion. It was Chris Motionless, or it was fuck man, I'm drawing a blank what his name is. From Lorna Shore.
Will Ramos?
Will Ramos, yeah, because Will and Nico are homies. Like, they knew each other growing up. They like live in Jersey together. So yeah, like Will was getting talked to be on the song, but I don't think we could really afford any features at the time. And we were also talking about like, oh, we want like Devin Oliver. And me and Devin Oliver, I guess, look identical. And people say that we sound really similar. So we were going to try and play into that and have Devin on the album. But Yeah, no, back to Reverence. We were actually thinking about having Chris Motionless on there, which is crazy that you say that.
Yeah, I picked up on it right away. And so, like, when you were talking about it being more of that thing that Nico got inspired by listening to the new Wage War album, that's where I was thrown up. I'm like, because it didn't even hit me as Wage, like, as like a, not an influence, but like the same way that a Wage War song would hit me. It hit somewhere like Emotional song would hit me, one of the heavier ones that I like. So hearing that you guys may have possibly had Chris Motionless featured on it, if I would have heard his voice, I would have lost it, just being like, how did I pick this up from the beginning and then it's right there? This is nuts. However, I still absolutely love the way the song is right now, the way your unclean vocals really just go nuts on this thing. It really stands out strong. And then you also brought up Pressure, which had more of that like Linkin Park feel to it. And seeing how all of that kind of like flowed in there, because it was like it had a Linkin Park feel to it. I was also looking at it like I can kind of hear some Fame on Fire in there. I can hear some From Ashes to New all mixed in there. So we got more of that hip hop kind of hip hop rap mixed with rock and metal style to there. That one ended up being one of the songs where I could not stop listening to it. That was one of the songs that I was looking at as struggling to pick my favorites because that one was so high up there. I'm like, my God, this is tough.
Reverence or Pressure?
Pressure.
I'm glad you like that one. I'm glad you like that one.
Yeah. Well,
even Nico didn't even really like that one either. He was kind of like, I don't know about this one. I'm like, dude, this one is it. We everybody kind of agreed that they liked it too, and he was like, all right, yeah, it's dope.
Yeah, and now I wish Nico was here because I would have told him to his face, being like, dude, if you were nervous about this one, you guys should have sent it to me. I would have listened and been like, and you're thinking about cutting this one? Are you mad?
Yeah. I think it was just because he wrote it. So it's like sometimes you're your own worst critic. So maybe that's why. But after we brought it to the studio and we brought it back home, that one was actually written on the bus because we had a show in between our studio session. We had to go to Austin, Texas to play 2 shows with Imminence. I don't remember if it was Austin and Houston. Either way, we went to Texas to play 2 shows. And then we had to come right back to Michigan to finish the album. But on the bus to back to Michigan, I remember we finished the 2 shows and we had like a 10 or 12 hour drive. And I remember I just sat in the bus and wrote the whole song on the bus. I wrote all the lyrics on the bus. And then as soon as we got back to Michigan, that was the first thing we recorded and it came out really dope.
It absolutely did. So thankfully that Nico was able to come around to it and really get behind it, put on the record because it was a banger for sure. Now I've got a question for you that this is going to be tough to answer, but the way I word it is differently because I could ask you what your favorite song on the record is, but it'd be like picking your favorite kids, right? Like that's not an easy thing. Okay. So I'm going to go about it differently. So there are 4 singles out right now from the album before the album gets released. So there are 8 other songs that have not been heard by anybody else, except for maybe a couple people and even myself included in there. Mm-hmm. Of those 8 songs that have not come out yet, which is the song that you were most excited for people to hear?
Separate.
Ooh, why?
Separate's the very first song that we recorded. We went to Landon's house and it was like a test run. They gave us 2 days. They were like, you have 2 days to write a song, do something. And literally as soon as we got to the studio and Landon played the instrumental, I was like, yeah, no, this is the one. And everybody tells me it's because I have an attachment to that song. They're like, yeah, you like that song the best because it's the first song you recorded. But I don't think that's true. I think there's been plenty of time since we've recorded the album for me to have a more like a better favorite. Mm-hmm. Separate is my all-time favorite. I think it's just I feel like it's just such a well-rounded song. I really love the chorus of that song a lot. If I were to pick a close second, I'd probably say either Heaven Knows or Hell of a Ride. Those 2, Hell of a Ride is our last single, so that'll be coming out soon. But Heaven Knows is just such a different vibe from what everybody else is going to hear when they're listening to the album. They're going to just hear all these, different kinds of like metal. And then all of a sudden they're going to hear this and they're like, yo, what is going on here? And I feel like I'm just super excited for that, especially playing that song live, because people are just going to be like, yo, what's happening right now? And then it kind of has that twist at the end too. So those are 2 songs, Separate and Heaven Knows and Hell of a Ride. So 3.
Oh God, I was looking through my notes on these songs, like, okay, what did I say about them? The one I didn't have to look over again was "Hell of a Ride" because it was between that one and "Pressure" that were my favorite ones. Because "Hell of a Ride" takes like as a closer on the album, the overall mood of it, the flow of it, it takes a completely different approach, and that's one of those songs that when you listen to it for the first time, you just kind of sit back in your chair and you're just wondering, can I listen to that again? Because now I know what to expect, but there's a feeling and a thought that I want to go over and I want to think about. And you listen to it, and that a rush of emotion, especially if you're thinking about someone that you love, someone that you care about, it just hits in such an incredible way where you might want to dance to this at a wedding with somebody, to be honest with you. So so the day the album comes out, coincidentally, is the day of my brother's wedding. So I may have to slip the DJ a little bit of like a, hey, play this song for me so I can dance with my girlfriend to the song because I want to try it.
If you do that, please get it on video because I definitely want to post that and like have that video for my own memory because that would probably make me cry. But I would love that, dude. That's so sick.
Now you're just giving me more fuel to like actually pull this off because
No,
I had
you have to. You can't go back on it now.
Well, because I had one song I was already going to pay the DJ to play anyway, and it is a song Scotty doesn't know because my brother's name is Scott, and I have to do it. But I want to put this one on there as well just so that it hits, it happens. My girlfriend loves to dance. I'm like, I got to make this happen. I'll tell my cousin about it too so like they can just record it as well so that like they can send me the video and I can send it to you and be like, I got this. Boom.
Hell
here
yeah,
you go.
man. That'd be so cool.
But then the other ones you brought up too, like Heaven Knows, because especially if you go through the track list, that is the one that were like a huge change and a huge just like curveball happens on this album. And when I listen to it right at the beginning, because right at the beginning, you can tell it's completely different from anything of the first 6 songs in the album. But I love the switch up overall because it gave not only the song a different emotional feel, but it gave the album a more evolved feel as we go forward. And I'm picking up other bands in there. I'm hearing like some stuff from a band called Varsity that's in there, bringing in some of the higher pitch stuff, some more electronic ideas. But the way it ends, I'll still never forget this. I literally have at the end, when the breakdown hits, I'm like, why didn't Bad Omens ever try this? Because it fits their style so well, but I think they may have been not sure about going there. But my God, I'm like, they probably could have tried this on the next album with a hit, but no, you guys beat him to the punch.
Well, the thing is, when we were making that song, we kind of had Death of Peace of Mind on. So there was a few different elements from that album that kind of made its way into that. And shout out August, he wrote that entire instrumental in the kitchen. Like he was just sitting at the kitchen table and he wrote that whole entire thing. I remember it like it was yesterday. I walked down, I see him with his red guitar and I'm like, bro, what are you cooking up? And he's like, just let me cook. And I'm like, okay. And I come back an hour later. I'm like, what you cooking? He's like, just let me cook. And then at the end, he came up to my bedroom and he's like, yo, this is it. And as soon as he played it, I was like, bro, I fucking love you. I was like, this is so fucking sweet, dude. I was like, I can't believe this is what you just made by yourself. Like no help. Just, it's so cool to be. And like you asked, like, I don't know how you guys were able to do this, but it's like when you got individuals like Landon and Nico cooking up all this stuff and Ryan's helping me write lyrics and August is sitting there fucking making shit by himself in the living room. It's like it's almost impossible not to make something great because you just have all of these great minds working as hard as they can to make the best possible material. So yeah, shout out all these guys. They're like my brothers and I'm so grateful to be able to be working with these guys.
I mean, from the story that we just were told throughout this whole entire episode about the making of this album and how it got put together, it seems like, to me, if you want to put in a synopsis, you have 5 guys, and you can throw Landon in there as well, especially we're helping with the album, 6 guys that have incredible minds for music, that have incredible creativity, and you were able to freely try things and be able to experiment on your own. And everyone had the respect to give those people that space to try something and not interject too much. But when it was time for it to be presented, you guys were able to go into it with an open mind, being able to just hear it out, hear what it is, see where the vision was going, and see how you could build on that idea so that you could come up with these 12 tracks in a no-skip album so that nothing was going to miss. And you guys, again, came up with 12 tracks that are absolutely insane. when listening through this, again, I started this late at night and I was going through it and I was only going to get through 6 songs before I went to bed. I was going to get 6 songs the next day. I got through 9 songs. I wasn't going to stop and I'm like, I should go to bed, but it was too good to stop. It was too good to be like, I'm going to put this on hold for now. You can't do that for an album like this. You can't do it.
I love that, man. That makes us really, at least I can speak for myself, but I can speak for the rest of the guys when I say I'm sure we're all really proud of this project and we're really grateful to have that kind of reaction for it.
Oh, absolutely. It's my pleasure to be able to give that reaction early enough, but I'm hoping that this is the reaction that so many other people give when they listen to the album, because it is dynamic. It takes left turns when you don't expect to take left turns, but when you take those left turns in the album on these songs, especially from a fan's perspective, you're like, I wasn't expecting that, but my God, did that fit? And as the album progresses, by the time you get to the end and you listen to Hell of a Ride, this album was a hell of a ride, but it's just going to be something that sits with you for quite a while. If people are not putting this on their album of the year list, like, that's a problem. This was that good.
That's awesome. I really hope so. I mean, we got a lot of good albums to compete with as far as albums of the year, but I mean, that's another reason why I feel like this album was so dynamic too, is because during the whole entire creation process, it's like all of these great artists are dropping music left and right, and we're just literally like sponges, just taking it all in. And then it's like, oh, well, this style just kind of came about right now. We're in the middle of writing the album. Like, do you guys think that this could kind of fit? And we're all like, yeah, let's try it. So I'm really excited to see what people think too.
Well, now as we're closing out the year too, I mean, like I said, this is going to be an album of the year contender for me at least. What are those other albums that you were listening to this year that like really stuck with you that you might be considering some of the best of the year?
Bring Me's album was definitely next level. I really enjoyed that project a lot. I still listen to that project a lot. I think Imminence's The Black, that album really stuck out for me as well. Like, there's some songs on that album that like I said, I still listen to like all the time. My son, one of his favorite songs, he just calls it the cut song. He's like, can you play 1,000 cuts? But Death by 1,000 Cuts, like, he loves that song. He really likes Statues from Bring Me the Horizon. That song's, but it's funny because it's like he's a 4-year-old kid and he likes some of like my favorite songs. So I'm like, this is awesome. But yeah, no, those 2 albums definitely stuck out for me. And there's a plethora of other music too that was dropped, but I can't think of anything else off the top of my head. But those 2 albums definitely stuck out to me pretty heavily.
I know the ones that's compete for me is the new Knocked Loose album from this year, You Won't Go Before You're Supposed to. Alpha Wolf's Half Living Things, that was a big one for me. Feed Me More by The Warning, that was for rock, was just fantastic. And then the new In Heart's Wake album that came out this year, I was like, my God. And
Invent Anime too, and Invent Anime just that album too, and that their last album was really sick. And the Knocked Loose album, because I just started getting into Knocked Loose. Is that the one with Don't Reach for Me?
Yeah.
So that song's been on repeat for me a lot lately. Unfortunately, that was after the album was written, but yeah, no, that album is crazy. Suffocate, Don't Reach for Me. There's a couple tracks in there that are just like, yo, what? I love that.
Yeah, but you guys are going to be right up there for album of the year contention when people get their hands on this finally. It's going to be somewhere it's like, all right, after November, that's where we're cutting off. It's like, no. You can't cut it off. You got to wait for that first week of December because this is going to drop and you're going to be like, and I didn't put this on there. What am I doing out here, man?
Wait until the race is over and then we'll steal everyone's hearts.
Pretty much, yeah. Well, Jaali, I got one more question before we wrap this up. It is something I like to ask every single artist I bring on this podcast. It's a way for us to get to know more new music that's out there and a way for us to get to know the music that you love. So I'm going to ask you for 3 examples. Can you name me 3 bands or artists that you love that you would love to see more people get into right now?
Paramore is my favorite band. So their new album, This Is Why. I mean, it's not like new right now. It came out earlier this year, but that album has been on repeat for me all year. I really love that album. If you haven't heard Bring Me the Horizon, like Bring Me the Horizon's new album is absolutely phenomenal, and they have a decade's worth of music, if not 2 decades worth of music for you to dive into their discography. And I would say Imminence. Imminence, those guys just overall phenomenal musicians. They produce their own music. They manage themselves. They're stealing hearts every tour they go on, and they just overall deserve more love. So I would say Paramore, Bring Me, and Imminence.
Well, specifically when it comes to Imminence, I know they got a tour coming up in like late winter, early spring 2025. Yep. So make sure you go and get your tickets for that one, and make sure you go and stay in touch with Until I Wake, because there's gonna be more stuff coming out in 2025 for you guys, especially when it comes to touring. We just gotta wait and see what it is, and I just got to make sure that day is open and go see you guys play live again, because it's been a little over a year, and I'm like, got to fix that.
Hell yeah, man. We're playing 3 festivals this year too. So if anybody's in the area, Florida, we're playing Rockville. We're playing Incarceration Festival. And then we're also playing this festival in PA called Rock on the Hill. We're co-headlining with Red Jumpsuit Apparatus. So those are definitely 3 festivals that everybody can hopefully make it to if you're around the area.
You pick Danny Wimmer Presents festivals with Rockville and Incarceration, and I'm going to Sonic Temple and Louder Than Life.
Maybe you could squeeze one of them in.
Or if you guys are playing, we'll probably a different show at some point in time throughout 2025, either in my good old hometown in Milwaukee, Wisconsin, or if you guys are in Chicago again. I mean, that's like an hour and a half drive south. That's nothing.
Hell yeah, man. Looking forward to it.
Hell yeah. Well, as we bring this podcast to conclusion, Jaali, I want to thank you for taking your time today. I really appreciate it. I'm going to end this thing with 3 things specifically. First things first, when it comes to Until I Wake, when it comes to the brand new album Renovate, again, comes out on December 6th. And when it comes to figuring out everything you know with Until I Wake, where to follow them, where to find them, where to go support them, where to stream the new album, where to get some merch, pre-order the album, pre-order the vinyl, whatever it is, and get tickets for any upcoming shows. Also, to support Wholehearted, the brand, help them out. Go straight for the podcast. Everything is going to be there. I'll have links. I'll have labels. I'm doing all the work. You can call me Google here. I really don't mind, but go down there, go check it out, and support these guys. Also, make sure you check out the album because, yeah, it's an album of the year contender. And Jaali, now it's time for number 2. Whatever guest in this podcast, I enjoy this podcast. I tend to make a promise as a way to say thank you, and I wish to continue to support the band in the future. And when I had the guys on at first, I know I got to do this with Ryan, and I got to do this with Alex, but they're not here right now, but it's you. So I'm going to make this promise to you. It is when I get to see you perform live next. I say when because this is going to happen. We just don't have a day or time yet. But when I get to see you perform live next, I will come find you. I will come and say hi. But the real promise is first round's on me.
Hell yeah, man, for sure.
Yeah, and if you could talk to Ryan and Alex too, if they're like, yeah, did some dude and like buy you a drink get you interviewed? Yo, yeah. I think we did tequila shots, which I was like, this is going to be nuts. Okay, I'm in.
Let's do it, man. I'm excited.
Hell yeah. And now it's time for number 3. Jaali, as we bring this podcast conclusion, I cannot end this by saying goodbye because this album was a straight up banger. I got to make sure I make good on that promise. But along with the other guys as well, because I still would love to have them back on again in the future. This cannot be the only time I bring you on the podcast. I would love to have you back on again in the future. So this is not goodbye, my friend. This is, okay. I'll see you later.
Yeah, for sure.
Well, folks, this is my interview with Jaali from the band Until I Wake, and now it's time for Kevin's final thought. I'm going to take this final thought in a little bit of a different direction than I normally do, but I'll tie it all back in, trust me. So, I've been doing this podcast for almost 6 years now, and the day we released this is December 3rd. The day before that, December 2nd, that was my 30th birthday. So this is 30, huh? Kind of looking back on it and my whole entire 20s, yeah, I did a whole bunch of crazy stuff. All the crazy stuff I did beforehand, all the crazy stuff that, the depression, the multiple attempts of taking my own life. Yeah, that was a bad time, but it all led to like creating this, starting this. And I got into this right when I was 24. So yeah, 6 years. And the amount of positivity and happiness that I've gotten from doing this is absolutely insane. From being able to start, just start this for myself, be able to talk with bands, small bands that have grown significantly and becoming good friends with them. Got to shout out Jonathan Norris and King Collapse. I want to shout out the ladies formerly of GFM, but Magdalene Rose. She was always great on here, and she was fast. Happy to have her back on, back in October. Joey Arena from Outlier. I always have to shout that guy. Joey Varela from Varsity. I still remember the time I brought on Benny Scholl from Avoid the first time, and the second time how we went off and we just went nuts. Matt from Caskets, he's been on 3 times, and it's always a pleasure having him on. or some of the ones that I never thought I was ever going to get and actually had it happen. What happened this year with Make Them Suffer, getting them on the podcast, and the story of how that all happened is nuts. John Cooper from Skillet, I was never expecting that ever. And then some of the crazy stories we've heard. My Silent Planet story is one of my favorites, with Garrett Russell filming in his car. And that was just, while driving a friend home from the airport, that was just nuts. But I know it all comes to a head when it's like, I think about all the great people I've been able to meet while doing this, not only in music, but also here in the Milwaukee area, in the Chicago area, the Madison, Wisconsin area, the Green Bay area, and everywhere in between. Being able to reconnect with my buddy Chris over this, my buddy Sam joining in all the fun. Shout out to the musics of Atlanta, Georgia, Jack, Jackson, and Dustin. You guys are awesome, and just kind of, the song Hell of a Ride by Until I Wake is perfect for this kind of thought process. And it has been one hell of a ride the past 6 years. We got through the pandemic doing this. We got through wave of shows, come back doing this. And I'm still doing 2 episodes a week, still by myself, still going nuts with this, and being able to talk to some of the best bands out there, and still being able to talk to some of the even the bands I never thought I'd be able to talk to. So 2025, I hope this happens. This would be a great 30th birthday or 30th year on this earth if I got to interview Tim McElrath from Rise Against. That'd be one hell of a ride. But yeah, hell of a ride. That's the best way to describe it. And that song by Until I Wake perfectly captured, along with so many of the other songs they put on this album. This album is fantastic. And December 6th, 2024, when the album comes out, is a day my brother gets married. And I'm going to try my damnedest to make sure they play Hell of a Ride at some point. I have someone get the recording of me and my girlfriend dancing to it, because yeah, just going to be a great time. And just means a lot. Actually, that was my thought too when I first heard the song. But thanks for being here, everybody. So make sure you follow Until I Wake. Links to the podcast below for everything Until I Wake, along with the Wholehearted clothing brand. Go down there. Remember, the album comes out on December 6th. Be sure to check it out. It is an Album of the Year contender. Following the Chord Progression Podcast, we're on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, so you can find us social media there. Hit subscribe on YouTube. You can hit follow on Spotify and Apple Podcasts. Also, hit the like button on those episodes to make sure you check us out and help push the episodes in the algorithm. I want to thank Jaali for taking the time today. Thank you all. And that's going to be really everybody. Thank you for watching, listening to the Chord Progression Podcast. My name is Kevin, and you guys know how I end every single one of those big, healthy, and hearty. Thank you, and see ya!